OWS, REI, $150 sleeping bag. Just got that given to me. Really a nice gift. And the good thing about REI, it has a guarantee for life, so I can use it out here, take it back to an REI and get the money if I run out of money.
Where to go? Where to go? Let's
go, folks. Home sweet home.
Where to go?
So, John, why are we here?
We're here in Tamman Library at NYU, and we're here because I have a photo archive that I donated to Tamman Library. It's about 30 years of work that I did professionally as a photojournalist on the Lower East Side of New York and different parts of the world. They have my archive here forever, and I'm in the process of doing archive work, which is identifying the pictures which are on negatives and helping them to organize it to where people can go into it, 30 years from now, and they have a special subject of interest that might have happened in the Lower East Side, or what they call the East Village now. They can find it and use photos, and so that's why I'm here. I'm also doing a protest by camping out in front of this library right now about NYU's contribution towards the rapid gentrification of the Lower East Side and the expansion of NYU space into the West Village. Yeah, I'm camping out here in front of the library, and tomorrow we're having action. Students are going to come out and camp out with me, and we're going to have drums and food, and
Awesome.
All kinds of stuff. So come by, starting at 7 o'clock tomorrow.
Cool.
Or get a sleeping bag and come back out and camp out.
I will, man. Good luck.
While my archive is sitting in the library warm and comfortable at night, I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag right in front of the library outside here.
So it's like double duty for you.
Yeah, but it puts NYU in a strange position in the fact that here I am out there really saying a lot of negative stuff about the university, but they have my archive in the library here.
Do you find it ironic in any way that your work, your photography, your archive is inside the library, warm, dry, safe, and you're outside here on the street without a home, wet, cold?
Yeah, I mean, you actually think the university would think it was worth their while to put me up someplace and let me do this archiving without making me pay to come here, sleep on the street, go into the library during the day and do the work on it, because honestly, the rights go over to the library after I'm dead, and 30, 40 years from now, that archive is going to be priceless. I have practically every countercultural celebrity that ever hit the streets of the Lower East Side in there. The era that I photographed is gone and never going to come back, and it's a very famous period of time in the history of the Lower East Side, or East Village, which is what the real estate developers started calling it when they wanted to gentrify the neighborhood. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of have a hard time understanding why they wouldn't see it in their interest to put me up in a hotel room and give me minimum wage to go in there and archive it. I've constantly felt like they don't really understand what the value of that whole thing is, although Tamman has a limited amount of stuff on the internet. The only reason my stuff is up is because I signed a contract that forced them to put it out there. And the small part that they did put out has about 6,000 hits on it now, which is like so much more than anything else they've got in this whole library up online. At least Tamman Library has. So, yeah, I mean, it's confusing to me. Although the legacy is going to be as more, I mean, my stuff is already being used by a lot of documentary people that are doing documentaries on the Lower East Side. Photos are in the Museum of Reclaimed Space. My photos are in the Yippie Museum.
So how long have you been down on the Lower East Side, and how did you get there?
Well, I'd been up here to visit the Yippies over at Bleecker Street. This is the first place I came, and I lived here in this very building for a few months, and part of the time I lived across the street at Studio 10. I met Abby Hoffman, I met Bob Fast from WBAI, I met Wavy Gravy, who was the MC at Woodstock, Daruba Ben Wahad eventually, most of the, now the people that started the Rainbow Family, Garrick Beck, Joni Freedom. I met people from the Living Theater here, Judith Molina. I mean, the list goes on and on. It was a place where I really was able to come to and not only have a place to live, but we made enough money to feed ourselves over at Studio 10 across the street, and we were doing all kinds of political activities in New York, and I learned so much from that, and the Yippies always have been, which I'm really good at myself now, is manipulating the media to cover what you're doing, and that's where I learned it all here. I got involved in organizing against nuclear weapons at the Savannah River bomb plant near Aiken, South Carolina. It's where they make all the plutonium for U.S. nuclear weapons, and I was part of a protest there where we tried to get into the administration building office of the plant, and were arrested and charged with trespassing under the Atomic Energy Act of 1954. We went on trial in federal court, and I represented myself. And part of the reason we were protesting, we were against nuclear weapons, but also the plant was covering up the high level of radioactive releases that they were doing into the environment around. The plant is a 300 square mile area, and they have signs posted around the plant for hunters that if you shoot anything coming off of this land, don't eat it because it's all radioactive. And they had been covering up the shoddy waste disposal practices. Routinely, the plant released into the atmosphere large amounts of radioactive tritium. In fact, the former waste disposal officer for the plant came to our trial and tried to testify that he quit because he was disgusted with the shoddy handling of nuclear materials that was going on at that plant, and the judge refused to let him testify in front of the jury. In fact, the judge didn't let any of our witnesses, including the very radical Catholic anti-war activist Philip Barragan, testify, and I actually cross-examined him in federal court, which got the judge real angry at me because he laid out a legal framework for indicting anybody, including the judge involved in production of weapons of mass destruction under the Nuremberg war crimes principles, and compared them all to the Nazis, and that they all ought to be locked up for a conspiracy to produce weapons of mass destruction. And the judge didn't particularly like being compared to the Nazis, so he really got it in for me, and I ended up going to federal prison. I became a federal fugitive for 3.5 years. Got all the way to Nicaragua. Was there doing That's when I started doing documentary photography. I was documenting what was going on with the Sandinistas and the Contras in Nicaragua, and getting my photos published in a radical paper here called The Guardian, which was a national paper, a national radical paper.
Were they attached to the Guardian in the UK, or?
No, it was a radical independent paper called The Guardian, but it had a national circulate. It was probably the biggest radical paper ever had that wasn't connected with some left-wing party or anything. Right, it was just a regular paper, but it was leftist. At any rate, because I couldn't get a new passport because I went there as a federal fugitive. Eventually I got picked up by Nicaraguan immigration and arrested and put in jail there for 30 days in Nicaragua. And at that point they gave me an option to renounce my U.S. citizenship and help join the Sandinista army or go back to the United States and be arrested. So I went back to Miami, was arrested. I did pretty close to a year in federal prison. As soon as I got out, when you get out of federal prison, they offer you a bus ticket where you want to go on $100. I go to New York, and I came to New York, and that's where I ended up spending I guess the next 20 some years. 30.
So what is 1979, 1980?
I was in federal prison in '84, so I got out in '85, okay. and then came here to New York and lived here pretty much up until the last year for the whole period of time.
kids are starving and the rest are